In another game week where Man United continue to stall and Paul Heckingbottom asks, how long, ref? We discuss another controversial week of football in the best league of the world, VAR FC. No, sorry, I'm only joking. The Premier League. This is One Kick from Glory, and I'm here, Clive, brought here with Craig and Matthew.
Yeah.
What's
As
up?
per, we're going to start with that game. A nice comeback from Spurs to win 2-1 at home against Sheffield United. Very late goals for them to win it, but lots of controversy in that game. I want to start with you, Matthew. How did you feel about the manner in which Spurs turned the match around and got that 2-1 win?
I think for a while it wasn't like it was coming around, like, because I was listening to it on the radio and they were saying that, like, it's just defense and defense and defense. It's kind of like run out a bit of a like a boring 0-0 or something, because Spurs are on a bit of a weird one this season. They've obviously lost their talisman in Harry Kane, which means the goals are going to rely on like the likes of Son, the likes of Maddison, and worse extent sometimes Richarlison. So best bet, you want the front two, the main two, to be scoring, because if they ain't going to score, you wonder where the goals are going to come from. But when I heard Sheffield had scored, I was just like, that came out of nowhere, and I was surprised. I was like, okay, kind of put some of my predictions out of the window. But I thought, all right, let's make it a little bit more fun and interesting. But then they got that very long stoppage time. Like I said, I didn't see it, but I was listening to it, and it's just really bizarre how we literally just found two goals. I mean, out of somewhere. I mean, when Richarlison is scoring one of your goals, something's really, really up. You know, no offense, but full offense, he's not great. But yeah, it was just a weird set of events that he's come around and just turned around and scored a goal. But it keeps Andrew's 100% record nice and clean. But yeah, it's a strange one, because at one point they never looked like anywhere near coming back. But yeah, it's a weird one, but it did it in a kind of Spursy way, I suppose. But I do feel for Sheffield United, because it appears they did a lot of hard work, kind of holding back. Obviously, goals are going to be a bit of a struggle for them because they haven't got like a massive talisman up front, and it's not the Sheffield United that got promoted last time. So this is going to be a very different season from what it was about 3 or 4 years ago. Very, very, very different.
Yeah, it's definitely a different season. I think what's been quite interesting so far is just looking at how teams are having to react to these new rules and new directives. I mean, I guess for you, Craig, when you saw that or when you heard that Tottenham were given, well, there was 12 minutes added time added on in that game, I don't know where those 12 minutes came from, but what did you feel about that, and how do you think that's impacting the league in general, this additional added time from the World Cup?
I don't like it. It's gonna cost team a lot of points this season. It already has done already.
Sheffield.
It's cost Sheffield, so it's not very good, because Sheffield were doing well. If they give them maybe 4 minutes or 5 minutes extra time, they could have held on and got the win that they needed. Once the game was going on for an extra 12 minutes, Spurs had the fitness to go through and the endurance to go through. They brought on players like Richarlison came on, and they had fresh legs. Kulusevski came on as well, and they had fresh legs, so they were able to maximise their potential to get down the final line of the game and win the game for them. So that's what happened.
I guess the big talking point with all of it is that, like, with the added time, like, how are the referees even coming up with it? Because obviously the manager was not happy about, you know, the way the referees were talking to his players, and even he spoke to them at half time as well when it was 0-0. Should say that the referee was saying, because the goalkeeper got booked for a handball outside the box. The referee said to him on one of their goal kicks, look, if you keep taking long, I'm going to send you off. And what the manager was saying is that, look, we have a way of playing out from the back. And obviously Tottenham had assessed that during the game and changed how they were marking their players edge of the box. So Sheffield were like, well, we need to see what they're going to do first, so we pass the ball. And he felt that the referees don't understand this element of the game. So it's one thing to say you want to prevent time wasting, but they weren't time wasting. They were just playing their football, but they just wanted to take their time. How do you think about that, Craig, in relation to, like, what might happen now with teams rushing things, which could lead to more goals, which might be good, but also could lead to more instances where teams feel hard done by?
But if it happens to my team, I won't be happy. So it can happen. It's definitely going to happen. It's going to happen more this season. These rules, I think the referees need to have a meeting and explain it properly so that people understand the rules. Because even the thing with the managers, before we had 2 managers in the technical area, now you only can have 1 in the technical area, and the assistant have to be sitting down. All these rule changes is it really good for football? And this VAR thing is really, since VAR has come into football, or especially in the Premier League, not in football, because other leagues in the world it works. Only in England it's not working. Either the referees are not good enough, or some of them are not good enough, let's be real. They're not. Other than the reason why I said they're not good enough, I'm not saying the reason why I said they're not good enough because they're not being trained. Or they're not learning from the mistakes they make. Look how many games this season referees have cost teams 3 points, and imagine end of the season that 3 points could have kept in the league, and managers get sacked because of these things. They don't take it into accountability that's happening, so it's an issue, and I feel like they need to do more training or watch other leagues and see how they do it and get more of a better understanding of what to do so it doesn't happen and cost teams matches.
Yeah, I think definitely needs more training. I guess for you, Matthew, like, what do you think then the Premier League needs to do, especially in terms of the referees and transparency? I know, like, I think I mentioned on like a month ago, one of our episodes about Japan and what they've done, where they have this weekly show where they get the referee from the match, one referee in the weekend's games, and the head of the refereeing body and the head of the league to kind of discuss decisions that's happening, talking points. Do you think the Premier League needs to have something like that, or do you think they need to go on a different route to kind of increase transparency and make this the best product it can be?
I think sometimes in certain games, you've got the VAR and the referee that don't seem to be always working on the same page, which why you get those results where a point can turn into 3 for one team or 3 can turn into 1 or maybe even defeat. There's no kind of cohesion sometimes they're working together. And there was proof of that this weekend between the Villa and Crystal Palace game. Now, I think this was Villa's penalty for them to get on to go and win the game. Anyone could have said that was a penalty. I watched the highlights and it was the most penalty of penalties I've seen so far this season. So why did it take so long to add on more time? Like, why are we not trusting the person's judgment? And that's why I think it's so hard for us to kind of get used to this whole new thing, because you got the judgment of the referee, which you kind of have to, like, you want to try to see if you can trust. And VAR should be like, yeah, cool, done, you gone done it. What are they looking for? And it puts doubt in your mind because it adds on more time, because it's like, that's just more time you've taken for something that we already all knew. Like, it doesn't need, and they're probably thinking it's not going to be a penalty. If it's taking that long, like, what are you kind of going for? So I think I think what they're doing in Japan is a great idea, but I also think it needs to be a bit more of a teamwork thing and a trust to kind of move the game on. And this is the issue with adding on all this time at the end of games. It just kind of ruins the flow a little bit, because 90 minutes at times, you're telling me it could turn into 120 one day. What's to stop it? What's to stop it from getting that in both halves? Like, one half is 50, the other half is 60, for example. You know, it's getting to where, like, you know, for all these little things we've got to check, like little nitpicking things, we're going to get extra long games, which ruins the flow, ruins the feeling, and just makes it, and dominates the talking points. We should be talking about the game, but instead, again, we're talking about the referees, which makes them sound like divas and things like that. And that's not what it's there for. It's meant to kind of streamline the game, but it's doing anything but.
Yeah, that's a big concern, and I do think the Premier League need to. I think the FA needs to take this out of the Premier League's hands, because clearly the Premier League and PGMO, which is the Premier League, the governing body for referees, they have their own directives, their own ideas, and I think it's just not working the way we want it to work. So I think someone needs to take it out of their hands to have better decisions going forward. Just one final thing on this game. I do want to give props to Richarlison, got his first goal. I think it's his first goal for Spurs now.
Yeah, he scored last season against Liverpool.
Well, his first goal of the season. Very happy for him. I know he's been going for a lot, and he scored for Brazil as well in this past international break. He in his post-match interview over there, he did say that he's been struggling a bit with his mental health, and he's going to be taking some time to see someone to help him sort of cope with, you know, how he's been feeling, because he's not been getting goals and it's really been affecting him mentally. But I'm really happy for him on a personal level that he's back scoring, that he's making the steps to kind of improve his life and his well-being. I think that's really important from a personal level. Obviously, fan-related level, I don't mind if he'd gone the rest of the season not scoring, but like putting my fan bias aside, I'm happy for him, and I do hope that he forgets his scoring boots at the weekend and can find them again next week for his next game. But let's go on to Arsenal, and we had a tricky game on paper, and a tricky game for the last 7 years against Everton away from home. For you, Craig, how are you feeling in the build-up to the match, and what was your kind of general thoughts pre-kickoff?
I was nervous. I felt like we're not going to do well here today, because our record has not been very good. But I think what Arteta did yesterday he's showing his ruthless side, and I think he needs to do that a lot more last season as well. He's dropping players who are not in form. Ramsdale's not been in form. since the Liverpool game last season. So he dropped him and brought Raya in. He dropped Havertz, who's still, I still think he's learning the Arsenal way of playing and learning the new club. I know Math will not agree on that one, but yeah.
He's your problem now.
So I feel like Fabio Vieira did so well yesterday. He played very well. Martinelli got injured. Trossard, who I feel deserves a start. I think he'll definitely start this week in the Champions League. Played well, got the goal. Saka, I'm a bit worried about Saka, to be honest with you. Like, I think he's carrying an injury. I was reading up the other day, he was saying that he'd been feeling a lot of pain in his Achilles a lot recently. And I think that's from last season as well. I think he's been playing, not 100% fit. And I feel that we have to manage his workload. Like, I think some games he might have to just drop it. Like yesterday, I'd rather we rested him yesterday and played somebody else to give someone like a Reece Nelson or a Smith Rowe some minutes, just to keep him fresh for Wednesday and try new players in the position so because we don't want to lose him for a long-term injury, because that could derail our season. But he's a very important player for us as well. So
yeah, I think it's managing his minutes is going to be quite important as the season progresses. Obviously, there was an article that came out saying that he has been nursing this Achilles or this issue in his leg, but with a lot of players, I think fans would be very surprised of how many top-level athletes actually play with injuries. I mean, Rob Holding mentioned it in his interview with Timsy. If you haven't seen it, it's a very good interview. He did, came out in the summer just prior to his move to Crystal Palace. But he was talking about Ben White from last season. Apparently there was a string of games when he was playing injured, and he still played and played really well. So it's not an unusual thing. Obviously, the club doctors feel like whatever it is that's affecting Saka is manageable. My only concern is for a young player. We've seen careers where they don't have the longevity because they play so much young, and I want to manage that. But one thing I do want to talk about for you, Matthew, is what happened on the pitch, because there were about 4 tackles on him, one by Mykolenko, which wasn't punished at all. And I think that there has been calls from Arsenal, the club, from last season. And I feel like looking at it beyond just Arsenal, but thinking about it for England as well, do you think referees need to be a bit more mindful of the tackles that are going on Saka and not just dismissing them because he's good and he doesn't complain?
It would be nice to see some of like flair players be protected, because a lot of talks gone around since the international break has just gone of this being like the best generation we've had a chance of actually winning something. Obviously got to the quarters last time, final, semi-final in the space of 4 to 5 years, and Saka's been ever present for majority of that. You owe it to the country to give yourself the best example, the best chance for us to progress and get that trophy that we can get. You could probably arguably say Bellingham is probably one of our best players right now and our key players. I mean, I don't know how much he started. Sorry about that. But yeah, it's just like you said, you don't want to end up like look at someone like Jack Wilshere. Look at someone like him retiring far too young with so much promise. You would kick yourself if that was the case with somebody like Saka, who's only going to get better. He's been improving his game every single time, season by season, and arguably with the players you've added to your team right now, you could say your chance of winning the Premier League is probably even stronger this year, not just going on heading on the Champions League. But they can't keep also the fact with the tackles that the Premier League has moved on from that. It's not that kind of league. It wasn't even like that. 20 years ago, it was part of the course. But players are now smaller. They're closer to the ground, centre of gravity, much closer to the ground, much more flair. I mean, if Burnley have adopted that kind of style of football, the Premier League should adopt that kind of style of football. Unfortunately, they've got a manager there at Everton that hasn't adopted that style of football. It's hoof football, which you in the past have seemed to have hated, but you've conquered that hoodoo yesterday. And the Premier League's moved on from that. It really, really has. And it's a time that the FA kind of realised that this is the way that football is going, much more intricate. Less even your defenders look for an eye for goal. Your goalkeeper's looking for an eye for goal. So it needs to kind of move on with the times. As much as we get annoyed at Gareth Southgate for still doing the old-fashioned thing, eventually he's gonna have to, realise that that's not working anymore. So, along with the VAR thing, we need to be a bit more mindful of being like, look, we can't you can't do those kind of tackles anymore. They can damage careers so severely. So just be a bit more mindful and caring, you know.
On that note about, you know, different managing tactics and Arsenal obviously dealing with the hoofball and all that kind of stuff. I guess just bringing this back to you, Matthew, like, do you look at how Sean Dyche has started at Everton, and do you think that there might be concerns for him in terms of whether he will make it to that 10-game point? Because I feel like for a lot of teams, and we said this pre-season, like we kind of assessed what we think the teams are going to do in their first 10 games. And actually in our next podcast episode, which will be at game 5, because this is game week 4.
Yeah.
No, game week 6 will be next game. Yeah. So this is game week 5 just gone. So after next week's matches, we are going to look back on our early predictions for those first 10. We're going to actually go back through them in the episode and kind of talk through what we got right and whether we want to revise our final 4 or keep them the same. But do you feel like he might be at risk of being one of those managers to get let go if results don't pick up? Because it really hasn't worked out for him so far at Everton.
Absolutely, they haven't really picked on. It's almost as if the season hasn't really ended from last year. I don't think they got a win. They haven't won yet, have they? No. They got a half decent result against Sheffield United with that draw with Jordan Pickford doing absolute madness in the goal. But they're struggling. They defensively they're not too bad, but it's just going forward. There's just no kind of, you know, Burnley, when he was at Burnley, they weren't known for scoring that many goals, and they've kind of brought in, I reckon they brought him in to kind of stop the rot, to kind of keep the goals from coming in. The trouble is that they don't have necessarily the metal to go the goals going forward, so they're not scoring.
So just to recap on Everton's season so far, so they've played for 5 games. They have won none, they have drawn 1 and lost 4. And this is their run of games. So the first game of the season, they lost 1-0 at home to Fulham, then got battered 4-0 away at Aston Villa, lost 1-0 at home again against Wolves, drew 2-2 with Sheffield United, and obviously lost 1-0 again at home to Arsenal. So 1-0 at home seems to be a consistent trend. If they could flip that result, make it a 1-0 win, we might have something here. But yeah, this is not looking good for them. 1 point out of 5.
It's scoring, but Calvert-Lewin hasn't been the same since his injury. And the trouble is, you can't look at many other players in that team where you can think where the goals are going to come from and where the flair is going to come from. And the worst thing for a club of their kind of size, you look at teams like Villa, you look at teams like Brighton, you look at teams like Newcastle, you look at teams like West Ham. Hell, you can even look at teams like Forest, and they're slowly being overtaken because they know how to score. They've got a better style of football, and they know where the back of the net is, or at least to work their way to the back of the net. It's not every day where you can just hoof the ball up to Calvert-Lewin and see what he does. It didn't even started yesterday. So he's definitely. I reckon he'll go before the Luton manager goes. I can see the Luton manager sticking it out for the season. They go back and come back up. They'll go down, come back up again. But he's definitely one. I would say he'd be the first to go.
I'm going to name 4 players for me that I think or maybe 5 players that I think goal scoring wise could help them turn their season around. Beto, the new striker they got him from Italy. He looks very good. Danjuma, because he's already got 1 goal this season to Danjuma. Jack Harrison.
Hardly played yet. Injured.
Hardly played, but when he gets back fit. Dele Alli.
Oh, he's there.
He's there still. And the 5th one is Abdoulaye Doucouré. I think those, and I've not named Calvert-Lewin because we'll see, but I think those 5 are the players that could get them the goals to keep them up and start looking higher up the table.
Or they need a better manager to manage them, because Sean Dyche doesn't know how to work with flair players. He never had flair players at Burnley.
No, he had flair players at Burnley.
Who?
He had Stefan Defoe.
Yeah.
He had
Danny Ings.
Stanislas, Junior Stanislas.
Yeah.
So they had a couple.
Jay Rodriguez.
I wouldn't classify him as flair.
But
No. So they had a couple, but not like massively.
wait, wasn't he there when he had Edouard? Wasn't Edouard?
Burnley.
No, yeah, no. Or was it Cornet?
Cornet was there. No, wasn't Cornet there?
Cornet was there.
Yeah, he was there. Yeah, he was. Yeah.
He's at West Ham now, isn't he?
So yeah, there's possibilities, but it's just a sad watch to see that they've not, because I really hope that they'll take on board what they learned from last season, really kick on strong, but they just really haven't. It's a bit sad to see. looking over to an Arsenal perspective, you look at Leandro Trossard coming off the bench for the Martinelli, who's got a hamstring injury, so he's going to be out for a little while. How happy were you to see him not just getting on the score sheet, but kind of justifying, because his representative had a meeting with the club before the international break just to ask what's going on, why he's not playing much minutes. Do you think that he has now shown that they were right to, he's now made a good argument to get more minutes going forward?
He should, because when he came to Arsenal, he made a massive impact. The reason why I think we kind of lost in the title race as well, we dropped him in crucial games in the season when Jesus got fit. We should have kept on playing Trossard. Trossard was like he got player of the month when he came, first month he played. Then after that, Jesus got fit. Then he dropped him for Jesus, and he was in and out of the team. When he came off, every time he came on, he made a big impact. He should have stayed on. I think towards the end of last season, I think Arteta even admitted it. I think he said he made a mistake in rotating players. He didn't rotate players enough last season. Well, now this season he's got a bigger squad. He has to start playing players like Smith Rowe, who's a quality player, just won the under 21 Euros, can't get a game. I don't understand why. I don't know if he's not training properly. I don't know what it is. He doesn't fit the system. You have to play him. If you don't play him, he's going to end up going to your rival club.
But you also got to keep in mind that it's still only early in the season. We've only got 5 games in. So I get the concerns about Smith Rowe not playing. I mean, if he doesn't touch the pitch against PSV in midweek,
then I think he's gone.
Then we can start thinking, okay, maybe there's something big going on here. But I think it's too early to say, because we had the same thing in Martinelli a couple of seasons ago when he barely got in. So I think let's just give it a bit more time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Because I think it's too early to say. I think there's definitely reasons to be concerned, but I think at the end of the day, you don't shuffle a system unless you want to spark a reaction. Obviously, he wants to get the likes of Rice and Havertz used to our new system. I was going to say Timber, but he's not available anymore. So we just got to see how it plays out. And speaking of Rice, Declan Jollof Rice, the more you look at it, Matthew, do you now wish that Chelsea had gone in a bit stronger and tried to prize West Ham's captain away at the time?
Not in this team, not in this current team. If you were talking 2 years ago when, he would have been ideal candidate to replace someone like Kante, then yeah, if you're talking 2 years when Tuchel was there, when we were going on our run towards to try and win the Premier League, which we should have, 2 years ago, I would have bit your arm off for him. The trouble is with now, and we'll mention it, we'll talk about it, is that in this system, I genuinely don't know what he would do. I don't know how he'd slot in with the current system, because he'd be learning along with the new players as well. And that's one of our biggest problems, is that we don't seem to, all for what we do in training, it's not executed in the actual game. I'm not going to say, I wouldn't say he'd be any worse than what we have right now in the middle, but I don't think the impact would be as big as it is for you, because he slotted in really, really well. But I'm not saying I'm jealous, but I am, I'm intrigued to see what he's going to do in more games, so yeah, let's get a bit worried.
I guess for you, Craig, how happy have you been at Rice's start at life at Arsenal? And do you think that the writing is firmly on the wall for Thomas Partey in the mid-term at Arsenal? Well, let's start with how you feel about Rice and his start at the club.
I was watching a clip of him the other day, him against Crystal Palace. I was on Sky Sports. I was watching a clip of him on YouTube. I was watching it. And some of the things he was doing on the ball, like off the ball movement, passing range, like his communication with the other midfielders, telling players where to go. He's a captain without the armband. He's a leader. He was a leader at West Ham at a young age. Took over from Mark Noble, come to Arsenal for big money. A lot of people were sceptical, saying why we pay so much money for him. He's proven his point already. Scored against United the other week. Done well yesterday. Got the ball. Played some passes around. Just keeping it simple. He's not the kind of player that's going to do a thousand rainbow flicks and all them kind of things where you look at it thinking, oh, that's what 100 million should buy. He does the things that you need him to do as a defensive midfielder. Protects the back four. Plays the ball around. Makes good runs. All them, I think the only thing I'll have to say is that I'd love to see him chipping with more goals, but that will come in the future. Once he gets, maybe he has another good partner next to him in the future, in the next dimension of Arsenal, then maybe he'll start getting goals. But I really feel this is Partey's last season at Arsenal, It's very sad. I love Partey, a very good player, but I feel like his injury record is really atrocious, and it's costing us now. It's not costing us, but it's costing us because in the summer we heard that we were looking to offers to sell him, and we kept him, and then he gets injured, and it's out for a while. I don't know how long he's going to be out for. He's going to be out for a long while. When he comes back, he's not the kind of player that when he's fit, he's going to get straight into rhythm and take him a couple of games to get into rhythm. And by then we'll be further in the Champions League, further in the matches in the league. So we need to have a Partey fit and firing. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't change the team to put Partey back in. I think he has to earn his place back in the team. I don't think he walks straight back into the team. If the team are doing well without him now, then I wouldn't put him back at right back. I'll still keep Ben White at right back. So I wouldn't change it at all.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for him to get back in, but at the end of the day, I think that's the benefit that you want to have with a good competitive squad. Like at Arsenal, we're not looking at just trying to get top four anymore. We've moved past that mindset. We're trying to win the whole thing, and so you need to have that competition in multiple positions. Arteta was talking a lot about it in the pre-match and the post-match interview about him wanting to be able to change players multiple positions, and one of his biggest regrets from the previous season is not being able to rotate. And one of the key positions he's referred to was in goal. And obviously this match, David Raya started. For you, Matthew, like what was your perspective on his first Arsenal game in goal?
Well, David Raya, he did what I thought he would do, mate. He marshalled it very, very well. This is he's one of the reasons why I wanted him at Chelsea, because he's a perfect replacement. He's destined to be competing for that number one spot, and he's going to show to give Aaron Ramsdale a lot of competition, because now he's got his first game, he's done really, really well. He's going to want to continue that. So if anything, he's going to push Ramsdale to go even harder in training, try and improve. Obviously, and the thing with someone like Ramsdale is that he's obviously going to be competing for that vacancy at England. Because if Pickford, let's say he gets relegated with Everton, that's not going to be a good look. So Ramsdale's going to be prime competition to go for there. I mean, David Raya, De Gea's obviously out the fold, so he'll be going for the Spanish number one. So you're in a very good place. He's commanding, he's good with his feet, he's confident, he's a good shot stopper. And you just with a goalkeeper, you have like reassurances when you see him, that 9 times out of 10 you're gonna have a solid game with him. So it wouldn't surprise me if he went for he did really well on Sunday. If he plays in the Champions League as a good run, I wouldn't be surprised if he plays 5 games straight. To really kind of put, which is good in a way, because you got 2 top class keepers competing for the same position, and in this league that's exactly what you kind of need. So a lot of teams don't have 2 starters fighting for a position. So on that front, you're in a very, very, very good place.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on how Arteta plays it out, and if he does do what he's saying about wanting to have, rotate goalkeepers. I mean, he was even saying that in the past he would have it's never been done before. Doesn't mean it can't be done and won't work, and he would have loved to be able to change the goalkeeper mid-match if it's not working out. And so we'll see if that ends up happening. If you do have a game when for example, if he starts with Raya and then the crowd picks up, because Ramsdale feeds off the energy and then you sort of swap them out and Ramsdale comes in and shuts out the game. We don't know. We'll see if that is the case, and that's what we do. Obviously, there was some quotes that have come out, or some reports come out about but the club may have had concerns about Ramsdale's start to the season, because he faced 9 shots so far this season, conceded 4 times from 9 shots, which is really, really bad. 9 times people have shot against you and you've let in 4 goals.
If you're competing for the league.
It's not good. It's only 9 shots. You faced 9 shots, you let in 5 goals, 4 goals. That's really bad. So I think that's something that they would have assessed and thought, okay, let's make a change here. But for you, Craig, how do you think this is likely to play out, and what's your kind of general thoughts about this goalkeeping competition now?
Well, if I'm Ramsdale, I'll look at, maybe I'll look at this is what I need, because this has been at Arsenal. He's never had good competition anyway. Turner was not good competition for a lot. Let's compare. Turner, he played every game last season.
And then Leno
was finished anyway. When he came, his head was already gone anyway. So he never. This is a perfect competition. Raya is a Spanish number 2 goalkeeper. So is Ramsdale, number 2 English goalkeeper. So both of them are viewed to be number 1 for their country and number 1 for their club. Right. So with Ramsdale, if he wants his place back, he has to fight for it. Prove to the manager that you deserve. Train hard, do extra training, do whatever you need to do to get to be the number 1. and in healthy competition, everything. Because every top club in world football has competition. Every position of it has competition. So he can't be taking it thinking it's easy. Like, he has to work hard for his place, and I think it will work. I think with the amount of games we have this season, both goalkeepers will have enough minutes to play this season. If in all competition, they've got the Europa League, Champions League, Premier League, FA Cup, Carabao Cup. So there's enough minutes for them to play they can rotate them. No issues.
I guess the big question is come Wednesday, who starts? Because some people think that the theory is that, well, Ramsdale will probably start in Champions League. It will be his first ever experience in that competition, so they'd want to give him that start. Me personally, I think Raya starts. I think he starts against Tottenham. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, yeah, because I don't think you'd swap it and then swap it back before those games. I think Tottenham's a massive game at the weekend. I would expect Raya to keep his place. It is at home, so maybe that might work for him. But Ramsdale does well against them, so.
And he's got the crowd on his back.
He's got the crowd with him, but it's at the Emirates, so.
So who would you start on Sunday? Who would you start then on a Wednesday? Would you start Ramsdale on Wednesday and then play Raya on Saturday or Sunday, or would you do the other way around?
It's continuity. So for me, whoever's playing on Sunday starts on Wednesday. That's how I see it. You don't swap a keeper and swap him back. So I think Raya will play all 3 games.
Okay.
That's what I think. He
idea,
won't change back until the League Cup. Maybe Arteta might swap it.
No, you can't. But obviously, you're right.
Yeah, Raya can't play League Cup. He can. We got permission from Brentford. He can play in the League Cup.
He can play in the League Cup?
Yeah, we got permission from Brentford to play in the League Cup.
I thought because the rules that if
No, you can ask the parent club. So we did ask them before we signed him, and they gave us permission to let him play.
Okay,
so
cool.
He will be eligible for that. So that's what I think will happen. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I don't mind. But yeah, that's been an interesting time. I mean, I guess the final thing on Arsenal before we move on to Chelsea, and then of course flop Chester United. Fabio Vieira looks a different player so far this season. He's come in. Looks like I feel like Eddie Nketiah's mums are making everyone jollof rice, you know. They've all come in with a bit more bulk, a bit more pep. How are you impressed with his performance, Craig?
He's done well. First 4 games, he's done well. Impact, done well against United, done well against Fulham, got the assist in 2 games, done well yesterday. Only thing he needs to work on is his finishing, because he had some chances yesterday when he could have really put the ball in the back of the net. I thought his shooting was a bit erratic. But other than that, he's done well. His link-up play, his tracking back, he works for the team. He's a good midfield player. And it's good that we have squad players like that, or players who can, on the bench, who want to start and are saying to the man, knocking the manager's door and saying, you know what, I need to play in this next game. So I'm going to prove to you every time I take off the bench, I'm going to be an impact sub, I'm doing my best. And the next game, you have to start me. Not players are going to throw their toys at the pram and sulking, going to the agent and say, I'm not playing, I'm unhappy, get me another club. We don't need that kind of players at our club. So having players like Vieira, who's humble, willing to learn. He learned a lot last season. You could see last season he wasn't ready for the Premier League. He was very, very small, not muscular how he is now. He was very eating lightweight. Now this season he looks like an animal, different animal now. And he's setting levels this season. So yeah, I'm happy with him.
I'm happy with him too. I guess for you, Matthew, just the last thing on Arsenal. I think, which players impressed you the most so far in the first sort of 5 games that you've seen this season?
I want to say I've got a target on Eddie's back, because I think there's big things out there for him to go and not just assign himself in that Arsenal team, but also to kind of assign himself in the England team. But I'm going to go for your skipper at the moment, because I'm jealous of a team that has a really good skipper, and that's Odegaard. He's such a leader. He's such a leader, and coming from a club where we were famed for having all these leaders, I can't even point to where our next captain was going to be. I think we've had 2 or 3 different captains so far this season, but it's nice to have an established leader in the team. And not only that, you know what else I'm going to say is Rice Baby. He's, well, like you said, another captain, and that's going to be a massive thing for you guys, is that you got leaders all over the pitch. And when you got leaders all over the pitch, it means the standard won't drop. They'll fight their way from a emphatic win against United to a scrappy win against Everton, and leaders can bring that out of you. So, for such a young guy, Odegaard's doing really, really well. So I'm quite impressed with him.
He definitely has kicked on really well and done some good stuff for the club. Let's speak about your beloved Blues. Feeling the Blues a little bit, but not the worst result in the world. 0-0 draw away from home against Bournemouth. I mean, just talk us through your thoughts on the match and just in general how you're seeing this season so far.
This is the winnable run, guys. This is the winnable run where we need to be getting those results because it's the easiest run of games we have for the entire season. You know, we didn't get it with Forest. I thought we were going to get it today. And yes, we had the ball in the back of the net with the free kick and all that kind of stuff. But it's like we get to the final third and we choke, we crumble. We just don't know what to do. We go for one more pass we don't need to do. We don't shoot. There's just no confidence. I mean, Jackson, I'm getting worried with him because since that Luton goal, he missed a massive sitter against Forest and he didn't really hit the target much. Against Bournemouth, just like it's just no, like we're trying. He tried something a little bit different. He started Mudryk this time, and he dropped Chilwell. That didn't work. You know, Colwell's playing in the wrong place. It's there. I can't just keep looking. He's getting things wrong. This is the second game in a row where I think he's gotten a couple things wrong with this team. And at the end of it, Bournemouth could have nicked it, and we didn't look like scoring. So you already know there would have been another defeat if they had that goal ball in the back of the net. Robert Sanchez had I think, a really good game. He kept us really kept him. Him and Gusto, I think, did really well. But it's almost like that pre-season was a holiday romance. You know, all that promise, so much excitement going forward. We're having fun. Even that Liverpool game, we're having fun. And since really Luton, it's kind of just fallen a bit flat. And it's like every player, we've got too many players trying to learn at the same time. And as a result, I think we talked about this the other day, when too many players are like trying to prove a point in training and going hard, you get injuries. So now the players that play are probably playing players who haven't played in a while are not recognizing, like, you know, the system that we're trying to go for. In hindsight, we're lucky to get the draw in a way, but I'll take it. But the winnable run of games will end. We got you soon. We got Newcastle. We got City. You know, I'm looking at teams like United who got taken over by Brighton. I'm worried about what we're going to do against someone like Man United. Even a team as bad as Man United seem to find a way to come around and beat us. But it's just I'm worried because there's just so much for Stott not there with the talent that we have. And what makes it worse is that last week, so during the international break, we had the Legends game against Bayern Munich. Now, I'm not going to be one of those ones that says that we need to go back to those players. But what I do want is something like that. Bear in mind, this was a Legends game. These are players who haven't played for the best part of the 10 years. True. And when they played together, they knew where each other were. They knew where to find them. Obviously, yes, I know it's a Legends game. We say, oh, they could still play. But in reality, they could not. They could not. But they know where each other are. They communicate. They're listening to the captain. It's all there. And that's kind of what we need to get. We need to get a bit of cohesion in that squad with all the players that we have and figure out and he needs to figure out what makes us tick and just stick with that, because that pre-season is looking like a holiday romance. Like, are there two different teams playing here? And I'm arguing quite similar players. So with Villa next on the weekend, I'm like, that's another very tough banana skin that we got to come against. So we got to get these points from somewhere before we enter into the really sticky part of the games. So I'm concerned. I'm not going to call for his head because that's a stupid thing to say, but he needs to get that team going. Look at your generals that you have. You know, Thiago Silva, he can't be playing every game because every time he gets the ball, he slows the game down. Like, you got Chalobah there, use him. Have like someone like the Silva as your go-to for being in the team, where he doesn't necessarily play all the time. You know, because it's killing us. So no, I'm worried, but I'm just happy we didn't flaming lose.
Yeah, I think avoiding defeat is important at this stage, just picking up points. I guess for you, Craig, obviously, we've talked about Nkunku's absence through injury and how much of an impact that's potentially, well, I guess now we're seeing evidently having on the team. Do you think that Pochettino might need to have a look and really nail down his ideal 11? Because the team that started the weekend, you had Leslie Ugo-Chukwu in midfield alongside Conor Gallagher, who was the captain at the weekend, which surprised me because I thought Thiago Silva's right there. Yeah. But and then you had the three ahead of them was Mudryk, Enzo, and Raheem, and then of course Nicholas Jackson up front. But do you think Poch is getting closer to that ideal 11, or is there still much more work to do to find it?
Still much more work to do to find it because Chilwell never quite started on Sunday. He's a normal starter, isn't he?
But he's still been playing in the wrong place. So he's playing as a left winger. He's not a left winger.
Oh,
he's a wing back, but he's not an out and out.
But how do
winger.
you guys say three at the back, don't you?
Yeah, we have three, but he's not. But what I'm saying is that he's not a winger. Even when Tuchel had him, he never really played him as a winger. He always has someone else there with him.
Yeah.
Because you had like Reece there, Ben there, and probably like Silver in the middle. But he still had someone on the things like because he's. That's why, I mean, at least with Mudryk, there was some kind of like figuring out between on the left hand side. But with Chilwell there, it's all entirely different. He can't do it. And the worst thing is defensively, he's been figured out. That's what the last two times. I mean, he wasn't at fault to go for Forest, but you find how easy it is to beat. Like defensively, he's a liability. He's much better at going forward, which is why you need a proper like left winger there to kind of take him over. So. But yeah, what were you saying?
Yeah, I think that I feel like the Sterling's he's got his number one starters already. Like Sterling's the number one pick if he's fit, he stays every game. Jackson, he's a number one pick at the moment because that's the only striker he's got. Yeah, no striker.
We have.
Mudryk is going to be in and out of the team because he's still trying to find some form. Since he bought him, he hasn't scored a goal for Chelsea, has he?
In pre-season, he did. Wicked goal in pre-season.
But not in the league.
Not in the league.
So. And you've got Enzo's your number one start. He will start every game. The goalkeeper will start every game. That's your number one pick.
Yeah.
Thiago Silva's going to start every game. That's your number one pick.
He shouldn't be.
I know he shouldn't be.
He shouldn't.
Well, because of his experience, and it's a young Chelsea team. They need that experience in the team.
Yeah. Full of youngsters. He's the only. I think he's one of the few, if not one of the only players that is actually 30 in his 30s.
Yeah. And Sterling's not 30 yet. He's still in his 20s.
Yeah, he's 28. He's like 27, 28.
So he's still got a young team. I feel that Chelsea are in transition at the moment, and I feel that it's going to take them a couple of seasons to get to the level that they used to be. It's going to take them a while. And when Arsenal went through the transitional period, Man United went through the transitional period, Tottenham went through a little transitional period after Pochettino left. They still had Kane in it, but they still went through little problems. Liverpool went through it for almost 30 years. They didn't win a title for 30 years. So they went through that long they won Champions League, but they didn't really beat the Premier League that they wanted to win. They went through the transferable period as well. So every big club goes through that era where they're dominating and winning trophies for a long time, and then they lose their best players, they retire or whatever, and then they build a new team. So it's a new time. It's going to be. I think Chelsea fans have to just be optimistic and say, you know what, if we can get into the top half of the table this season, try to get a Europa League football or whatever we can, that would be a good season for you guys. You'd have to take it. I don't think you guys are ready for Champions League right now. I don't think so. With your squad, no. I don't think so.
You know what Sod's law is over this weekend, though? I found out today. You know who did score on the weekend?
Who?
Lukaku.
and you're
that's so
£100 million down the drain.
Sod's law, and he scores somewhere else. The only other striker we have is scoring someone else.
You guys didn't want him at your club, though.
I still don't want him, but it's just Sod's law, isn't it? It's just Sod's law.
But it's under a manager that one thing with Mourinho knows how to get the best out of players. He done it at Chelsea when he first started. He did it when he came back. He knows how to get the best out of players. He knows how to put that arm around a player and give them that motivation and whatever. So
we're not that club anymore. We're not that club anymore. No, we're different now. We are different, sustainable.
Boldly at the wheel, yeah.
Cool as well. I mean, I definitely think you'd rather have Bowley at the wheel than whatever's going on at Old Trafford, because it's just an absolute shambles at the moment. I mean, Brighton have their number, and I think I didn't update my fantasy football team. If I'd done a little bit of research, I would have definitely brought in Pascal Gross, because a couple of years ago he got me lots of points. He scores against them a lot. He has a habit of doing it. He likes to play against them. Brighton look very strong, and I think they're going to be one of those people that are going to be in and around the top 4, top 6, top 4,
definitely, yeah.
Third conversation. But let's talk about Manchester United. And obviously, they've coming off the back of their defeat at the Emirates to Arsenal. A little fun game a couple of weekends ago. But I guess for you, Craig, how do you assess how their season is progressing so far? Because it's not going according to plan. And I don't think it's at crisis point yet, but it's not far off though, is it?
Well, in pre-season, they beat Arsenal in pre-season, and they had this young kid called, what's his name, midfielder. He did so well against us. I can't remember his name. I think it starts with an M. Is it Madu?
Oh, he's injured, yeah.
Yeah, he played well against us, and that looked
Mainu.
well. Yeah.
Mainu, yeah.
He did well against us, and I thought, oh man, that looked like they turned the corner this season. They brought in they got rid of De Gea and they brought in Onana, and all the hype was around Onana is going to be the best. He's going to be a good keeper, all this and all that. He's conceded a goal every single game this season. I think he only kept one clean sheet this season. That was against Wolves at the start of the season.
Game he should have lost.
Yeah, they should have lost that game. I personally feel that it's a deep-rooted issue with the club upstairs. The owners, they don't know. They're clueless. They've wasted a lot of money on average players. They've wasted an awful lot of money on players that are not good enough, and they've had so many managers since Sir Alex Ferguson's retired. They had Mourinho, they had Van Gaal, they had Solskjaer, they had Moyes, they had Ragnick. They had now they've got Ten Hag. It's still the same. It's still the same thing. Like every season, they one season they'll do well, they get to the Champions League. The next season they'll flop again and they get into the Europa League. So they're a very up and down club, and I feel that the manager needed to be backed properly in the summer, and it wasn't backed properly at all. I don't think it was backed properly. He didn't get the players he wanted. He didn't get he wanted certain players. Like he didn't want to get Højlund. He wanted Kane.
Yeah.
He wanted certain players, and he didn't got the players he wanted. So he had to go to the back, like his number 2 or number 3 option of players he wanted to get. Like Reguilon was a panic buy or panic loan.
Yeah.
Amrabat, they wanted to buy Amrabat on a permanent, then they got him on a loan.
He's on his loan.
So
Has he played yet?
no, he's injured.
So even stuff like that. I mean, I'm just looking at Man United's squad list at the moment, and there's a few players that I'm just questioning why they've not been given an opportunity so far this season. Ahmed Diallo, who had a good loan at Sunderland last season.
Injured.
He's injured. That's a shame.
Very good player.
Obviously, we'll come on to Sancho a bit later. Van der Beek, why is he still there?
God, you still forgot about him.
Why is he still there? Like I don't understand how.
Forgot about him.
Barring the money, why are you so Manchester? Like you've just wasted 3 years of your career.
Yeah.
It's not even I don't think it's in the Dutch team anymore either.
What just wasted your career?
I'm not gonna lie. I forgot he was there.
Mason Mount. Didn't Mason Mount come in to replace him? No.
But he's injured. Mason Mount was also injured.
I mean, obviously there's Maguire that's there still, and we know he should have made that move to West Ham. That's his own fault. But I'm shocked that Donny van der Beek is at Manchester United because he's never going to get minutes.
I'm shocked as well.
It's just, I mean, obviously Kobe Mino had a good preseason. I think he's injured at the moment. But and then obviously up front you got Anthony Martial, who is just washed. I don't know why he's at Man United either. He's not good enough to be a striker for them. With all due respect, he's just not good enough. It's just a bit of a mess. They've got their squad composition just baffles me because I look at these names and I don't see enough quality for what Manchester United represents. When you say that name and you see that badge, that means something. They're not just some average team in the Premier League. They are one of the greats of world football. You should not be having players, with all due respect to him, Harry Maguire should never play for Manchester United.
100%.
He's not a Man United player in any way, shape or form. I know he's had good games and he's had poor run of form and obviously he's gotten some crazy abuse which has gone too far. But when you watch him on the pitch, he does not give you the feeling of a Man United defender.
Player, yeah.
He doesn't have the aura of Jaap Stam, Vidic, Ferdinand. Even someone like Johnny Evans, who, bless him, hit and miss. He's more Man United than Maguire. Yeah. Even Phil Jones. He's more Man United.
And he's been released.
So you got people like that. Obviously, Lindelof, again, I don't think he's good enough to play for them, but they're stuck with him because they can't just ship them all out. And then you look into midfield and you've got Casemiro, who just...
It's like a 40-year-old. He's playing like a 40-year-old.
Like he's aged
so much in 1 year.
Bruno's having a goodish season. McTominay, McTominay, he's a bit like Marmite. He's not the worst player in the world, but... better.
Does well for Scotland.
Yeah, I'm happy for Hannibal. get his goal.
Yeah.
That was a really good strike, and he's a
Very
player
good
that
strike.
Man United fans have been talking about a lot over the years. I'm really happy for him, and I think this is a year for him to push on. He was at Birmingham last season.
Done well at Birmingham.
Very good
Really
loan.
good at Birmingham.
I want to see him push on. But then you look at that and you think, then they go and buy Mason Mount. I'm like, what's the logic behind it? And for Mount, I want him to come back from his injury and really start putting on the clinic and performing for them and showing the quality that Chelsea